Hello! It's coming up on summer here in Melbourne. The weather is very slowly starting to get warmer and I kind of need some new summer clothes. I've put this off for a few years now and it's getting to the point where it's like, okay, you've worn through everything. Everything either has rips or holes in it, or the fabric is so thin that it just kind of is disintegrating, or it doesn't fit anymore. You need to sit down and do some new things. I've sort of had this sort of vague goal of wanting to sew through all of my sewing patterns. So why not kind of kill two birds with one stone, get some summer-y clothes going / transitional clothes, as well as sew through some of my patterns. So I've got two patterns here. One is my tried and true pattern. I use this all the time. I've made 3 versions, I think, and I've altered patterns from this. It's just a great default pattern for me and my style and my preferences. I like the bodice. I've traced off and adjusted the bodice to fit me well as done variants of it and saved them in the pattern, because I personally don't love drafting from scratch. I much prefer to kind of wing it and use existing patterns and alter them to be what I am. Sort of using them like blocks, really. But the other pattern is this one, which is a 1970s pattern that I just got this past weekend. I really like the ruffly base on it, and I think it will be super duper cute. So what I'm planning to do is sort of cut this off pretty much right below the bust dart, so it'll be a little bit longer, and attach this bodice to it, but the variant that I do of this bodice where the straps are attached. So it'll be sort of a thick band. It'll kind of look like this, but with a little bit more waist definition. So with our 2 patterns chosen and our fabric picked out as well, let's just jump on in. I'm using a mid-weight cotton fabric from Morris & Co. called Stand-In for this project. We'll be cutting out the altered front and back bodice pieces from the Simplicity pattern and the ruffle, front and back pieces from the lengthened hairlines down from the Vogue pattern. Both front pieces are cut on the fold, while the back bodice piece has had added seam allowance to the back for a center back zip instead of a side zip. I started by stitching the back and front of the skirts together at the side seams. I folded the edges of my seam allowance and used a mock French seam to give it a clean finish on the inside of my garment. I then stitched together and hemmed the ruffle pieces before running 2 rows of gathering stitches along the top. Matching up the skirt's front, back, and side seams to each of the ruffle seams, I gathered the ruffle onto the bottom of the skirt. Setting the skirt aside, I marked and stitched the darts for the front and back of the bodice. I trimmed the waist darts with pinking shears and attached the front to the back pieces at the side seams.
Hi. So that's the excess seam allowance. So I'm going to turn that up. I've just loosely pinned it in the back, but I don't think I want to pull it in much more, because I think I'll still put, I'm either going to put ties here and that will sort of cinch in the back a bit more, or I don't know, I don't want it to be too tight. And all of this will get adjusted. Like these were just roughly pinned and unevenly pinned. I'm just trying to decide if I pull in the side seams at all, but I think I'm gonna leave it so that it's just normal. So that plus the skirt, which will get all gathered up. Oh, maybe I do want it fitted. I think I do want to do it fitted. Okay, we're gonna take these in a bit.
I pinned and sewed the desired adjustment to the bodice. This is generally a lot of guesswork, and I usually try on the bodice several times, making minor adjustments as I go. Ideally, you baste the zipper in to get a better idea of the back as well. The side seams were finished in the same method as the skirt, and then I gathered the top of the skirt and attached it to the bodice. I pinned and stitched a zipper into the center back of the dress. I like to use vintage metal zippers, and thankfully one of my local op shops gets a pretty good supply of them, so I'll often buy several in the colors that I generally sew in. So at this point, I spent a day just staring at the dress and avoiding finishing the bodice because I just wasn't sold on how it was looking. After much consideration, I decided to just take the bodice off and turn it into a skirt. I decided I wanted to make this flexible at the back and pulled a piece of elastic out from my stash that was a little shorter than half of my waist measurement. The plan was to have the front of the waistband rigid, with the skirt gathered at the front onto it, and then the back elasticated to create the gathers and negate the need for closure.
I used a small bit of interfacing at just the front section of the waistband. I pulled off the bodice and redid the skirt gathering to be just at the front. So I wouldn't have to thread it in later, I stitched the elastic to the sides of the waistband, and then just folded the waistband over, encasing the elastic in it. I then top stitched the front and just half of the back down. To do the other half of the back, I slid the already stitched side out of the way and then repeated the steps for encasing on the other side, thus finishing the skirt.
I'm so glad the skirt is done, and it ended up being a skirt. I think I actually will get a surprising amount of wear out of it. I was a little nervous because it's not as full as I generally like skirts, but I do really love the flounce at the end, and that sort of gives me that swooshy feel without it being too full on to try and maneuver around with. This one had a huge roadblock in it where I just didn't know what to do with the bodice, and so it just ended up being a lot easier to take it off and know that I would probably wear it as a skirt. It did occur to me when I had finished putting the ruffle on the skirt that I might just like it just as a skirt, and that I thought putting a bodice on was going to ruin it. It did. Not completely. I've kept the bodice. I haven't cut into the bodice yet either because I'm like, I could make it a cute little two-piece and I might enjoy that a bit more. I do like the weight of it. I think it's still light enough that it won't be frustrating to wear in summer, but it's warm enough that I think with a pair of tights and some boots, I can easily wear it through at least autumn, if not winter. I have filmed this to try and keep it as close to possible as my actual methods of putting things together, where I do sort of jump around a little bit and decide I like things and then just, nope, no I don't like it, and change it completely. And I played around with potentially cutting different bodices out of it, or taking off the straps and doing spaghetti straps, but then I was like, I don't think I would wear as many shirts under it. I do kind of think I do, because the two dresses that I do wear skirts under the most are actually spaghetti strap ones, which I didn't think of at the time. But I wasn't sold on that cut of the bodice. But that's one pattern down. That is it for this project. If you like this video, you can check out my other videos. And if you really like this video, you can feel free to subscribe. I hope you have a lovely week. Bye!